for engaging in deceptive trade practices and fundamentally taking advantage of a group of American citizens to whom this nation owes a tremendous debt, and those are our veterans. Disabled Veterans Consultants is an example of a claim shark. And for those of you who don't understand what a claim shark or hasn't heard that term before, these are individuals and organizations who prey upon our veterans in their moment of need when they're trying to access the disability benefits that they're entitled to as a result of their service to our country. These organizations and individuals take advantage of veterans by offering to help process those claims for a fee, often an upfront exorbitant fee, and oftentimes a percentage of the disabilities that are actually recovered themselves. Sadly, this country has not invested enough in supporting our veterans. This country, indeed this state, has not invested enough in supporting our veterans. And oftentimes we have men and women who have honorably served this country, who have disabilities as a result of their service, who don't realize or may not have access to free services to help them access the benefits to which they are entitled. And so the action that we have taken today is intended to send a very clear signal to claim sharks, both in this community in Las Cruces, but around the state, that this kind of conduct will not be tolerated by my office. We will be aggressively investigating anyone who is engaged in this conduct, and I have asked the veterans who are assembled here today, who are leaders of various organizations from around the state, to work collaboratively with the Department of Justice to refer any and all information they have about unscrupulous business leaders and businesses in this state who are preying upon our veterans. The lawsuit which we are announcing is predicated on the Unfair Practices Act, and we are alleging unfair practices and deceptive practices in how these organizations market their services, their failure to disclose the extent of the fees that are associated with processing this, and fundamentally taking advantage of people and seeking profit from folks who are by law entitled to free support and services. One of the things that I think has come out in the conversation that I've had with the veterans here today is not just the problem with claim sharks generally, and not just the problem with deceptive businesses who are engaged in this kind of behavior, but the way in which the government itself has failed to meet its not just legal obligation, but its moral obligation to the men and women who have served this country. I am proud to count myself as a public servant and the son of two public servants. And I think that one of the things that still unites Americans, regardless of their political affiliation, regardless of their political beliefs in a time when this country is deeply divided, is our appreciation and understanding for people who are willing to put their country first, to put their nation first, to sacrifice, and ultimately to risk and pay the ultimate price for service to this nation. There is no group of people to whom this nation holds a greater debt, and I am profoundly angry by the practices and the deceptive businesses that are engaged in this space, but I'm also profoundly disappointed in the way in which, both at the federal level and frankly at the state level, we have failed to make appropriate investments. And specifically, I'd like to point out the fact that the veterans groups that are assembled here today made a very, in my estimation, a reasonable and rather limited request to have new services put into the state budget so that they could continue to provide free support to our veterans around the state. And at a time when we once again have record budget surpluses in this state, and when we have grown the budget by historic terms over the last several years, that meager request was stripped from the state budget. I didn't know about it until today, but rest assured that is something that I and my office will be advocating for in the future. For today's purposes, in addition to filing this lawsuit, I want to make it abundantly clear to all the veterans who are listening that we are going to be there to support and help you. If you have a complaint or concern about a claim shark, a business that you have agreed to sign over a percentage of your benefits to in the hopes of securing some relief and support from the government, we want to hear from you. So we are going to be working through our constituent services departments to make sure that we process any new information. I've asked the veterans leaders and groups that are here assembled here today to do the same, to share information about bad actors in this space. But we're also going to do what we can to share information and resources about the work that they do, free of charge, on behalf of the men and women who serve this country. This is an example of something that in a time when we are bitterly divided over politics, this is something that we as Americans can and should rally around, and that's the support and defense of the people who have risked everything and paid the ultimate price and continue to pay even after their service has ended. We have a moral obligation to the men and women who serve this country, and I intend to do everything that I can in my capacity as Attorney General to make sure that that obligation is made whole. And so with that, I'd like to invite Brian Rayback to come and give us some remarks and give us some perspective on not just the lawsuit that was filed today, but the larger context that we find ourselves in trying to serve veterans in a way commensurate with their service. So, Brian, thank you.
Thank you, Attorney General Torrez. I'll start off my comments by giving you what we call in the military the bluff, the bottom line up front. We stand united before you today, veterans of foreign wars, the American Legion, and the disabled American veterans, in full support of the New Mexico Department of Justice to bring an end to the predatory claim shark activities in New Mexico. These illegal and unethical practices must end now. And those companies profiting off of and preying on our veterans must be held accountable. While we stand before you as a united front, we also realize that we have an immense amount of work to do to crack down on predatory claims companies. The VFW, along with the American Legion and DAV, have actively urged Congress to pass legislation that would prohibit the exploitation of veterans and survivors of unscrupulous claim sharks and strengthen the accreditation system. Each of our organizations have accredited veteran service officers who file VA claims for free. For free. Not one dime of a veteran's benefits goes to a veteran service organization. We are concerned about the bad actors preying on veterans and skimming off the top line of that veteran's earned VA benefits. Claim sharks often charge astronomical fees, rates equivalent to 5 to 10 times their monthly VA benefit payment. These quote-unquote fees could place a veteran in debt simply by trying to access their earned benefits. This is unethical and illegal. Many of these companies illegally use veterans' login credentials for VA websites and call centers. Some charge tens of thousands of dollars from future benefits for their services. And then, if a veteran receives a VA disability rate increase years later, often these companies return seeking more money, whether they performed additional work or not. Furthermore, they routinely obtain medical opinions from company-affiliated medical providers, which raises another unethical concern. Anyone who assists veterans with the preparation of VA claims should adhere to the established fee caps or be subject to penalties, like our VSOs. We need common sense legislation to require that everyone who charges veterans for claims assistance does so under VA accreditation and follows legal precedents as would accredited agents, attorneys, and veteran service officers. Because of the inaction of our representatives in Washington, D.C., 9 states have already passed anti-claim shark laws that prohibit charging veterans for initial claims. Those states are from Illinois, Iowa, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, Nevada, New Jersey, New York, and Washington. New Mexico House Bill 245 is working its way through the New Mexico Congress and unanimously passed through the House Labor, Veterans, and Military Affairs Committee by a vote of 10-0. That bill proposes, quote unquote, prohibiting receiving compensation for assisting a person to obtain veterans benefits except as permitted under federal law, end quote. I urge our state Congress to pass House Bill 245. As I understand it, it got stalled in the Judiciary Committee, the House Judiciary Committee, and we need to shake that thing loose and get it moving. If not in this session, we will demand it be reinserted next session. We have a lot of work to do. We need a national claim shark law, but until then, we in New Mexico need House Bill 245 to be passed. And finally, the veterans advocacy work accomplished by the VFW, the American Legion, and the DAV, my counterparts standing right here behind me, we will always put veterans first. And we will be grateful, we are grateful for the New Mexico Department of Justice that they are taking a strong stance against unethical claim shark companies. This sends a stern message to other claim sharks operating in New Mexico who prey on our veterans. We will hold all of them accountable too. Attorney General Torrez, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the more than 100,000 veterans here in the state of New Mexico. Thank you.
With that, we'd be happy to stand for questions.
Locally, do you have a sense of the impact and the damages that you would seek to reclaim for, on an individual level, for an individual person impacted by this?
So it's very early. As you know, we are in the process now. We've just filed this lawsuit, so we are going to be going through the discovery process to get a clear understanding of just how many veterans may have been taken advantage of. We will certainly seek recovery and restitution for any fees that resulted, but in addition to that, the state has the ability to recover $5,000 per violation for every single violation, and the way in which that's calculated, it's actually calculated based on not just the number of consumers, but the number of times that a false or deceptive trade practice was actually put into the marketplace. So the financial penalties would be substantial. I think for the veterans who fell prey to this organization, we are hoping to not only recover and return any fees that have been obtained, but also eliminate any of the outstanding contractual obligations as a result, which would then free them up to work with licensed, credentialed, and principled veteran services organizations like those who are present here today, who would be able to facilitate and help them in any future claims without any charge. But we don't have a clear sense yet. I can tell you that while this is the first action that we've taken against a claim shark in this space, it almost certainly won't be the last. And so we are doing everything that we can to make sure that veterans across the state know that this is something that we're going to be looking into moving forward.
And please state your name and your name as well. How long has this company been operating, and how common is it for these businesses to pop up in New Mexico?
So I can't give you any specifics about the founding date of this particular defendant, although we'll get you that information as quickly as we can. I think one of the things that's become clear to me in the conversations that we had earlier this morning is that there has been, thankfully, an expansion of the range of and the type of coverage that has been made available through congressional action, which I think is a good thing. But what we've done is expanded benefits, or at least the possibility of increased eligibility for benefits, but we haven't resourced appropriately the types of folks either through the federal government or through the state funding mechanisms to make sure that we have enough navigators, unbiased navigators, people who are not in it for profit, but they're in there trying to help veterans. So what happened is that we expanded eligibility for claims, but we didn't expand the ability for the government to actually process those claims in an efficient manner. And so I think when you have that kind of situation, right, you've got money available to a group of Americans who are entitled to that, but the government, both at the state and federal level, hasn't done enough to make sure that the people who are impacted can now navigate that process in a fair and efficient manner. That creates an opportunity for businesses like this and unethical and unscrupulous people to step into that space and take advantage of folks.
Algernon, Albuquerque Journal. This is an industry that is federally regulated, and I think you had mentioned cuts and sort of erosion of some of the checks. Is the dismantling that we're seeing in federal spending, for instance at VA, eroding the ability to prevent bad actors like this from continuing to operate?
I think it's the short answer is I don't yet know. I don't have a clear enough picture about the kinds of cuts that may be underway in this agency. But what I would say in general is that the kind of conduct that we're focusing on it's existed for a long time. My hope is that while the current administration is clearly doing a lot to make pretty dramatic cuts in various federal agencies, that as with other cuts, they would be very mindful of how those decisions are impacting people who are entitled to receive these benefits, right? And I think, again, this is a place, hopefully in America's political discourse, where we can still find some common ground about honoring the obligation and the debt that this country owes to its veterans, and that we would look very carefully at how decisions are getting made and what impact that might have. I don't know yet if these, the actions of DOJ or other leaders in the administration, how that will impact this particular issue. My focus, though, is on the things that we can do at the local level by filing this lawsuit, but also at the state level by stepping into that space. As I understand it, these organizations used to routinely receive about $25,000 a year. That funding went away at some point during COVID. They have tried to have it reinstated and actually increased to about $100,000 a year, I think spread across 3 different organizations, so $300,000. That didn't make it into the state budget. And I think when you really put that on the table for New Mexicans to ponder, and they look at the size and scale and scope of the budget and the size and scale and scope of the surpluses that we've had, I think most New Mexicans, if given the opportunity, would not only kick in $300,000 for these groups, but if I am correct, would probably put in a whole lot more, given the sacrifices that have been made by the men and women in uniform. So unfortunately, the session is closed. I understand it, House Bill 245 died in the Judiciary Committee. These budget issues didn't make it through committee, but this is certainly something we're going to be focused on at the state level for the foreseeable future.
All right, that's all the time we have. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.